I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you for this event. This is a Ward 3 Neighborhood Association, one of our signature events, so I'm excited to have this, and I thank everybody for coming here. However, guys, I would like to start out, which I normally don't start out, with an apology. So I'd like to read this so I can make sure I get it right, and it's exactly 2.3 minutes, so Emily, but I'll ignore it, okay? All right, guys. As I said, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Ward 3 Neighborhoods Association signature event, the Ward 3 Campaign Forum. I am Joella Jada Tarbutton-Springfield, President of the Ward 3 Neighborhood Association, and I am truly delighted to see our neighbors, friends, and candidates gathered here tonight, including the Mandarin or whatever he is back there, so I'm truly excited to see that. Yeah. Before we begin, I'd like to address a little hiccup that's been floating around online. The flyer mix-up. I call it Flyergate. The Spanish side of the flyer from a draft version that was meant for deletion was accidentally sent home to the Bridge Street School community instead of the final version. The issue actually stemmed from an AI translation and design error that affected the photos and the names of the side of the flyer. So that, I think I even apologized to people, I know Quaverly in particular, but I wanted to do it to everyone. It wasn't sabotage, it just certainly wasn't scandal, just a technical mishap in the design process that was quickly corrected. The final English-Spanish version were reprinted right away in color back to back and distributed as intended. The goal was, and always is, inclusion and communication. And maybe it's fitting, guys, that this happened in a school, because it was sent to the Bridge Street School, to them. Because school reminds us that learning isn't about being perfect. It's about being willing to grow. I don't fear, if you know me, I don't fear making mistakes, but I do fear environments where people are afraid to make them. Every time we correct something, we strengthen something, our process, our understanding, and our community. That's the spirit of Ward 3. We show up, we fix things we learn from our neighborhood projects to our annual meeting earlier this month at the historic Northampton. Thank you very much. We keep building bridges, literally and figuratively. So tonight, guys, I'm so happy that we're all here, and I would like for us to focus on what really matters, engaging with one another, hearing fresh ideas, and some old too, and celebrating what makes Ward 3 such a vibrant, caring, and resilient part of this city. And if you're not a member of Ward 3 Neighborhood Association, consider joining us. We meet monthly, second Tuesday, 7 to 8:30. We work hard, we laugh hard, especially if you're around me. And we welcome everyone to the table. And so we have a Facebook account, and then we have a website. So thank you all for showing up, for caring, and for helping make Ward 3 a place that keeps learning and growing. You can applaud now if you want to. And with that being said, I'd also like to do an introduction, if that's possible. I'm sitting next to someone who's so special. This is an introduction of the moderator, Tara Jacobs. She's the Governor's Council. And I first met Tara Jacobs about 4 years ago at the Northampton Senior Center. She was out collecting signatures to run for the Governor's Council. I remember immediately drawn to her, this tall, confident, Amazonian-looking woman with a head full of curly hair that I secretly wanted to braid. After she introduced herself, I do. After I introduced myself, my very first question was, what's the Governor's Council? And she gave me the clearest, most passionate answer, one that made me realize how important this is. And I truly admired her commitment to social justice. She went on to win that race against all lawyers. We got to win this race. And a major victory. Yes, guys. And since then, since she won, she's been deeply connected to our community here, especially Walter Salvo House. She's come there several times, ice cream social, talking with folks, and most recently she came and gave an update I get emotional on that, at our Martin Luther King celebration this year at Walter Salvo House. I mean, she lives in North Adams, and I see her more than some people I see around here. But anyway, we invited her to moderate tonight's event, and she jumped at the chance. And we had several Zoom meetings leading up to this evening. Her insight, enthusiasm, and dedication have helped bring everything together beautifully. Tara is more than just an elected official. She's a mentor, especially and role model to me, and to so many others who see in her what leadership and heart truly looks like. So please join me, guys, in welcoming this amazing woman. I love you. I'm going to leave.
Wow, I literally, thank you for that introduction, Jada. You literally made me cry. Let's get this started. I'm very happy to be here this evening. I want to welcome you all here tonight. Thank you for attending. I want to thank the candidates for being here and our panelists for being here. And also extend a thank you to the Northampton Public Schools for use of this space and Northampton Open Media for recording this evening. And a video of this will be posted on their website, we hope by tomorrow, for viewership. And so both for those here tonight and for those who will end up watching this at home, thank you for your commitment to being informed in the election process. Engaging with this process is a way to make an informed choice come election day, and really happy to see so many turn out, and I hope a lot watch from home too. So here's the format for this evening. Can everyone hear me? This is working all right? Okay, good. We're going to be holding two forums. The first one will be focused on the Ward 3 City Council seat, and the second on the mayoral race. Each candidate will get an opportunity to offer a 90-second opening statement, followed by questions from our two panelists, who will alternate asking questions. And we'll offer both questions of their own making and those that have been collected from the community prior and at this event this evening. If you haven't already and you wish to submit a question, there are index cards being collected at the table over there, and you're welcome to fill out a question and they will be passed forward. Each candidate is going to get a 90-second opportunity to they're going to do opening statements and then 90 seconds to answer each of the questions, and then we're going to be rotating the order of candidate response back and forth with each round. And if the panelist whose question is being answered feels they want more information, they are able to ask a follow-up, and so that each candidate will have an additional 1 minute to respond further in the same order that question round has been offered. And we're going to be alternating. So candidates will alternate on who responds first, and on closing statements, they'll be in reverse order from the opening statements, with candidates having 1 minute each to offer their close. We have Emily Stein in the front row, the Vice President of the Ward 3 Neighborhood Association. She is serving as our timekeeper this evening, and will signal how much time candidates have left, and when your time is up with a bell. At which point, candidates, if you hear the bell and you're still talking, finish your sentence and wrap it up, because we're trying to keep to a tight schedule this evening. As mentioned, I am Tara Jacobs. I am a member of Governor's Council. I represent District 8, which encompasses all of Western Mass and a few towns in Worcester County. And Northampton is in the heart of my district, and I'm very happy to be moderating this evening. Before we get started, I'd like to draw your attention to the emergency exits at the back and the front of the room. I ask that you please mute your cell phones, and that you hold your applause until the very end of the forum. We're working on a tight timeline, and so we're appreciating your help in staying on our schedule. At the very end of this forum, if you would like to talk to the candidates, we're asking that people take that outside and then come back in for the second forum. This is a nonpartisan forum. We ask that no political signs or campaign materials be displayed anywhere in the school building or on the grounds. And we're asking everyone, please just remain respectful, thoughtful, and civil in watching this forum. So let me introduce our panelists this evening. First, we have Alexander McDougall, a reporter at the Daily Hampshire Gazette, who covers Northampton politics and news. He's been busy this political season as a panelist for the League of Women Voters Forum in September, and also asked questions of candidates for the Ward 1 City Council position. And before working at the Gazette, Alex worked at the Bangor Daily News in Maine, where he earned a master's degree in journalism from Boston University prior to that. Our second panelist this evening is Diane Porcella, a Ward 3 resident who is the executive director of Northampton Neighbors, an organization devoted to helping senior citizens age in place, and she's worked with the Northampton Arts Council and the Young at Heart Chorus. She'll be asking questions this evening that are coming from the audience, the community, as well as those developed by the Ward 3 Neighborhood Association prior to this event. And finally, briefly, to introduce our candidates before they have an opportunity to introduce themselves. We have Lori Lazelle, retired this month from the Northwestern District Attorney's Office, having worked as the Director of Communications and Community Engagement. Before her 10-year stint with the DA's office, she worked for 29 years at the Daily Hampshire Gazette as a reporter and editor. And we have Councillor Quaverly Rothenberg, who is the Ward 3 City Councillor, and retired from a career in classical music to enter public service, first as a court stenographer and now as a legislator. Her family lives on Graves Avenue, and her children attend Bridge Street School. So with that, we are going to open with opening remarks and offer the first opening statement to our sitting councillor, Quaverly Rothenberg.
Thank you. So happy to see so many of you here tonight. I'll just take this time to tell you a little bit about my background and how I made that transition from music to public service. Because as you can imagine, having a very specialized education in one thing from the time that you're a toddler can make it a little difficult to make a career change later in life. I was passionate about issues like war and peace, really wanted peace when I was making music. I had been exposed to a lot of Russian music that talked a lot about World War II, and it's colorful music, and I had traveled to those places and seen what had happened to them. So I had to think quickly, and I invented a system of stenography, which is shorthand writing, that worked well for a cellist, because most of the existing systems work well for pianists. And once I had that in place, developed the hardware and the software, then I was able, as a stenographer, to just basically learn everywhere I went. First, I went to the Charlie Rose show and helped them with their production. Then I went into the court system and helped a lot of especially public defenders and became concerned about issues around incarceration and abolitionism. And then, as I had children and realized they were autistic and that I was autistic, I became an advocate for parents. After I fled a domestic violence situation, I became an advocate for people who were in the same position. Built mutual aid networks for my neighborhood. Say your house burned down in a fire, you're a single mom, we raised money for you. And then I became part of the school council and part of the Ward 3 Neighborhood Association. And from there, reflecting on all that we had done in our community from Graves Avenue, I thought, you know, I'm ready to enter public service. Here I am.
Thank you for that. Next, I'd like to offer the same opportunity to Lori Lazelle.
Thank you. These past months, I've chatted with residents from Hockenham and Lyman Roads to Marshall, Cons, and Fruit Streets, and most streets in between. I learned a lot, and the only thing I know for sure is we agree on nothing. If you don't like infill, know that others in Ward 3 think it's the solution to our housing crisis. If you love the Picture Main Street plan, understand that there are people who hate it and some who fear it. As a city, we typically don't vote on these issues that seem to divide us. We are governed by this sometimes infuriating thing called representative democracy, where we elect people who we hope will be deliberative and thoughtful in making decisions about matters like finance, laws, and regulations. And because these are things people don't always agree on, sometimes decisions don't always go the way we think they should. If I'm elected, it's almost a certainty that I won't always vote the way you want me to. But here are some of the things you can be certain of. I will communicate with you. I will explain my votes. I will listen to your opinions. I will search out facts and reason and context to shape my positions and guide my decisions. I will reject misinformation, and I will not villainize anyone. Any decisions I make will be grounded in humility and humanity. If that's the representation you are looking for, I humbly ask for your vote November 4th.
All right, thank you. So with that, the first round of questions goes to Diane Porcella, and the first to respond will be Councillor Rothenberg.
Great, I just have a question. I requested an accommodation beforehand in terms of having any time to collect my thoughts.
I want to get to that?
Yeah.
Yes, I did. I did get that. But what we're going to do, Jim, are you here? We're going to make sure that everybody gets the same thing. So we'll We'll give you 15 minutes,
15 seconds.
15 seconds,
Sound good?
not minutes, 15 seconds. And then the other seconds can be on your,
I think we agree with it. When the candidates start to answer the question, then the clock will start to tick.
thank you.
That's simple.
Okay.
Thanks, Bob.
Now to make
Take
sure.
your time and then you'll have the full time once you start to talk.
Great.
School funding has become a central and dividing issue among Northampton voters. Some people contend that the city has enough money to fund the schools at a higher rate than currently done. What's your plan to make sure Ward 3 residents understand how city and state money fund the schools, and Bridge Street School in particular?
Can you repeat the last part after understand?
Sure. I'll just do the whole. What's your plan to make sure Ward 3 residents understand how city and state money fund the schools, and Bridge Street School in particular?
Okay, so this question sounds like it's asking how we're going to express to you sort of what is actually possible, how it works, right? So this question isn't so much about what I would do to make more funding. So in terms of how it works, the state's funding formula has been stagnant. For 20 years, we haven't gotten what we needed from them. It is incumbent on us as a city to fund our schools. And Bridge Street School in particular has some funding available to it from the state that's called Title I, because we have such high needs, low income, racial minorities. Some of our money this past year that was for a school just like Bridge Street School went to Jackson Street School. So these kinds of issues about how the funding works and what is available to us, it's very important that counselors are watchdogs about that, and that we understand the responsibility lies with the city. The buck stops with the city.
Next, your.
Okay.
Liza.
Well, I guess in answer to the question, how I would basically communicate with the ward residents is I would talk to them, and I've been sending out a weekly newsletter. I would continue to send out a newsletter, probably not weekly, and I plan to join the school council or sit in on the school council and communicate with parents that way. I was a driver on the walking school bus. I plan to do that again. So just being in the community and talking to residents. But I will say it's very complicated what's happening with our schools and the funding. And you know, our schools have been, our city has suffered a stranglehold since Proposition 2.5 passed. And it's slowly kind of like gotten worse and worse and worse. I saw over the years that I was a reporter, the instability this caused, particularly schools, and pink slips going out. Is that me? Oh, that 90 seconds went fast. Wait, so that means I'm done?
You
Oh,
can
okay.
finish your sentence if you're in the middle of a
Oh.
sentence. But
I don't remember.
okay. So in future, you can finish your sentence if you hear the noise, just that's to wrap up your thought.
I'll do that next time.
Do we have a follow-up?
We're okay.
We're good. Okay, so the next round of questions will be asked by Alexander McDougall, and the first answer will be to Lori Lizelle. You'll get the first answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you both for being here. One of the big issues in the city as well is the issue of housing. Cost of living remains very high in the city. There are several affordable housing projects going on in the city, as well as some market rate housing, one of which is a 5-story, 54-unit building planned between the Phillips Place and Hawley. So I'm just curious, what are your viewpoints on the city's approach to housing? Do you feel that the city is doing a good job, or do you feel like there is a better way?
The last part of that was what?
do you agree with the city's approach to housing, or do you think that there is a better way to address the issue?
Well, I think that housing we need to be welcoming people into our city, and housing is one way to do it. I think that a number of years ago, city council, not this city council, a previous city council, changed the zoning to allow for more infill development in the city, and I think that makes sense because otherwise we'll have sprawl, and environmentally it makes sense to have infill, have more housing on the bus line, more housing, in the center of the city. I think that we need all types of housing, and I'm very excited about how many affordable housing projects are currently being built and in the pipeline. And I think we need all kinds of housing because there's a housing crisis in our country and in our city. So we need affordable housing, we need market rate housing, and we need something in between affordable and market rate.
Thank you for that. Next to respond on that is Quaverly Rothenberg.
Thanks. So there are many good ideas that we have introduced, and I like that we are doing things like making it possible to have ADUs, right, which are smaller units on your property, so you could have it for an in-law or an adult child who needs to live close to home, or a rental. That's great. But the degree with which we have been deregulating our market has really led to a surge in prices, and that is affecting people's ability to live here. That is even affecting people who live in subsidized housing, whose rates are tied to the market rate. So I am in favor of a much more robust dialogue that is based on more than just what consultants or studies that we've picked out of other cities tell us. I think we need to have homegrown solutions that ensure that we cause no harm to the existing cost of housing. It is not enough to have a long-term plan that yields a little bit of benefit while doing immediate damage to people's ability to afford to live here. I also think that we need to consider how the taxes and fees in our city affect mom and pop landlords and their ability to maintain the wonderfully low prices that they give us. And we need to be vigilant about the pressures that are put upon them, leading to their selling out to large corporations that are doubling and tripling the rents for people in Ward 3 the minute that the buildings change hands. That is a crisis for our community.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so the next question will be asked by Diane Porcella, and the first to answer will be Quaverly Rothenberg.
So this is a question from our audience this evening. How can we make our property tax system more progressive?
So that's a complex question, and there's a great white paper on this that I will publish to my website for anyone who wants to learn more at the end of this evening. One option that we have is to make the first however many hundreds of thousands of dollars of the value of a property not taxable. Whether that will work well for us is debatable. One other thing that I think we really ought to do is audit the valuations, the way in which our city has reassessed properties, because I don't think we have quite enough transparency and information there and quite enough thoughtful methodology about whose home values get reassessed when and in what amounts. We heard from people this year who had doubled because of a computer glitch, supposedly, or some software that was not used properly by the prior assessor. And that kind of incredible surge in the price of someone's taxes is really rough. You have to remember that Prop 2.5 only limits the total amount of revenue that the city can bring in, but it does nothing to limit how individual properties fluctuate within that entire pie. In general, this is an area where I think we are limited quite a bit by state law, and that would be a great place to work with our state representatives to make sure that we can have better, more progressive, less regressive taxation.
All right, your opportunity, Ms. Lizzo.
I can be quick. I have no idea. But I would find out. I really, it's something I've never really thought about, and I think that I do think that funding our city on property taxes is regressive, but haven't studied how you make it more progressive. So I would have to look into that. And one of the things I did as a reporter was investigate and question and find out a lot of things that I never knew before. So that's what I would do.
Follow-up? Okay, so next question goes to Alexander McDougall, and the first to answer it will be Ms. Lozelle.
Okay. So as you mentioned, Lori, this is a representative democracy, and a part of that, being in a representative democracy, is frequently communicating with constituents who might have issues they want to bring forward in the position as city council. So can just both of you speak to a little bit about what is your ideal method or philosophy in terms of being in touch with constituents, and and how do you plan on doing so once in office? Sorry about that.
Did you say I start first?
You're so
okay.
yes.
Well, that's one of the things I've been thinking about a lot, and have even started to try to do during the campaign. We developed a mailing list, and I've been sending out a newsletter. And I like to talk to people. I've been every day pretty much knocking on doors and meeting residents, and mostly asking them what are the issues that are important to them. And so talking to people, meeting with people, going to events, just communicating with people in informal and formal ways. That's how I would do it.
Okay, thank you. Quaverly?
Well, the first thing I'd like to do is invite all of you to an event on Friday at Bombix, which I hope will model what we would like to see in terms of town halls in this city. It's an event that we called Ask Us Anything, and it features 9 candidates. And the idea is that we are not limiting the topics that you bring, and we're going to have a facilitator from WHMP, Dan Torres, just to help you kind of collect what are the priorities that you want to talk about. The 7 days a week office hours I have been utilized a lot by constituents. I really appreciate that. I keep an office downtown. I ride the dangerous waves of Facebook multiple times a day. That's a sacrifice I make to my constituents, but it's proved very effective for spreading conversation. Even though the algorithm is supposedly fueled by conflict, I would argue democracy is also fueled by conflict, so I'm okay with that. And I think we need to expand public comment. It keeps getting restricted and shrunken. And the last thing I'd say is that the email addresses, a registration for community members would be fantastic. When I came into office, my predecessor, who had been here for 7 years, passed me 4 email addresses. And so I have not found email to be the most effective way, just simply because city councilors don't have all of their constituents' email addresses. So let's work on that. And let's also think about if we can have more phone systems that you could sign up for as well, right? We want to meet you wherever you are, and it's very different for every constituent how they like to be communicated with.
Okay.
Thank you.
No follow-up? Okay. So the next question goes to Diane Porcella, and the first to answer will be Quaverly Rothenberg.
The city's downtown still has many unfilled business spaces, and its nightlife is nowhere where it used to be. What is the city's role in promoting downtown, promoting its nice nightlife, and being a leader for economic development? Please tell us what you would do or are doing to improve the business climate in the city.
Well, first I want to give a shout out to the Downtown Northampton Association, which has really been shouldering a lot of what should be, I think, work in the city, right? We need to hire a qualified economic development director. We have a massive economy. We don't grow at 2.5% every year. We grow at about 5%. Local receipts are a huge part of our economy. The empty storefronts, I think, are a result of an out-of-control rental market for them. And I think that it would be good for the city to do things like invest in buying some of those storefronts and renting them out at reasonable rates. In general, I think it's important for the businesses also to lead. And I really appreciate mayoral candidate Jillian Duclos, who did a fantastic job creating roundtable discussions when she was the director of the Downtown Northampton Association. I attended those meetings regularly and maintained strong relationships with business owners. I think that this is a critical role of the Northampton government. We are not like other towns. We are different than Hadley. Making this a place where we are tapping into the tremendous creative potential of our community, which has at times thrived, but right now is crumbling, is critical. The people are still here. The artists are still here. We need to open them. Ward 3 has got the Calvin, has got Pearl Street. We have Hayes. I encourage you to go check that out. That's a new young woman who bought that, only 24 years old. Fantastic. But these people take huge risks as entrepreneurs, and they need a city who will support and back them.
Thank you. Lori Lizelle.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. The city's downtown still has many unfilled business spaces, and its nightlife is nowhere near where it used to be. What is the city's role in promoting downtown, promoting its nightlife, and being a leader for economic development? Please tell us what you would do or are doing to improve the business climate in the city.
Okay. Well, excuse me. I think that the Iron Horse coming back was a great thing that the city played a role in. I think the city's role is to be a strong partner and leader, working really collaboratively with the businesses. I think that changing the regulations on Strong to have summer on Strong every year is another way the city kind of allows businesses to take over that street and create a really great community place that people like to go. And I was at the city council meeting when it was discussed to allow it for next summer so that the businesses can plan. And I also last week went to the downtown Northampton Association, DNA, yeah. And it was really a great meeting. It was crowded, it was in the Hotel Northampton, and business owners were very excited about things that are coming up. Halloween, drawing people. They had just finished the event on Market Street, the Market Street Market, how successful that was. People came from out of the city to come to it, and then they were up and down Main Street. I've noticed that. So I guess, loosening up some regulations to allow creative use of the downtown space. I also think Picture Main Street will help because it'll be a more inviting place for people to spend more time on the sidewalks. And that's down the road, I know, but, yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there a follow-up on that one? Or
No, we're good. Thank you.
Okay, so the next question goes to Alexander McDougall, and the first to answer will be Lori Lizelle.
Okay. There's been a lot of conversation about the ongoing dialogue or rhetoric that we see at city council meetings and at and levels of government generally. Obviously, debate is a key element of any healthy democracy, but do you feel that the rhetoric in Northampton has become too divisive? Why or why not? And in general, just how do you feel that rhetoric and dialogue when talking about issues should be, or how should it go?
I think that some of the public comments in the city council meetings have been very villainizing of people, and it's unfortunate because I think that shuts down conversation. I am also very concerned about misinformation and inaccurate information. I think that we have lost a lot of media coverage because of the state of journalism, and I think in that void, social media is playing a role, and there's no vetting, there's just misinformation that kind of circles around, and I think it creates this culture where people dehumanize each other, and I think we need each other now. We need to work together, and I think it's harmful to our community to be demonizing each other. So yeah, I'm very concerned about it. It's one of the things that I talk about a lot, and it's one of the things that residents talk to me about, that they don't want that in their city. It's happening nationally, it's trickling down to our city, and it's very unfortunate because I think that it prevents us from working together to find solutions for the common good.
Quaverly Rothenberg, it's your
Thanks.
opportunity.
I agree that villainizing people shuts down conversations, and I am hugely disappointed that an establishment that has lost control over the prevailing narrative of what's going on with our finances and what's going on in our schools and how they're running their democracy has chosen villainizing the dialogue about it as the approach to deal with it. I have no problems with the media revolution that we're in the middle of right now. I think it's very similar to the 60s when there were lots of student newspapers that were being printed and distributed to get information out. I think it's very helpful when the public can talk to each other robustly. And I have heard extremes from both sides, but I have heard a majority incredibly insightful, incredibly compassionate, incredibly well-informed takes from the public. And if it is very uncomfortable for a minority that has had control for 30 years, it is irresponsible to simply neglect to have the conversations we are asking to have. We want to talk about policy. We want to talk about the budget. That is what we do. To villainize that, that is what we are seeing nationally. That is what we learned in school we cannot do. We must be free to have debate. We must respect differences of opinion. And we must find reliable sources of information.
Can I respond?
I'll allow it.
Thank you. I would say, I don't know what you're talking about when you say for 30 years. I mean, the people that are in office now have been elected by the voters. There's no power grab by people. It's, in fact, for many years, it was hard to find people who would run for city council. It's great that there's so many people running now, but there's no cabal here. That is just a crock. And I don't have any problem with debate about policy, debate about issues, debate about facts. I mean, you know, facts are facts. But I don't think it gets us anywhere to say things like, you know, there's been a powerful cabal in this city. It's just false. It's just not true.
So you have 1 minute to respond to that if you'd like.
Sure. The people of Ward 3 were not born yesterday, and they mostly did not move here yesterday. I learned from them and their oral histories. I worked for years as a stenographer taking oral histories of World War II veterans. I'm very used to doing this kind of work. And I immediately began hearing about a very small group of very familiar people who served things like 18-year terms, who had the same campaign manager since the time of Claire Higgins. We know that it is a small group. I know that it's a small group because they gave me their blessings when I ran last term, and it was critical that I achieved that blessing. Otherwise, I would have been endorsed against by a senator, and I would have had no chance to get into this office. This is a historic year where we have challengers for every single seat. And yes, it is hard to find people to run sometimes because people who serve are not treated well if they ask questions. But we are in a national moment where everyone is asking very serious, very fundamental questions. And it's happening in Northampton as well.
Thank you for that.
I've lived in Ward 3 for 30 years.
Okay, we're going to close this question now. We're actually moving into our last question of the evening. The question will be asked by Diane Porcello from the community, and the first to answer this one will be Quaverly Rothenberg.
I'm going to try and combo a question from the audience and a question that we had prepared. So, city government is not responsible for plowing sidewalks, nor could it afford to plow all the sidewalks from Leeds to Florence and Northampton. Still, part of Northampton's current plan calls for a walkable city. Our neighbors in the Montview neighborhood near downtown have been advocating for new sidewalks to no avail. What can be done in that neighborhood to help those wanting to walk and overall help keep our sidewalks clear and passable for all members of our community at all seasons?
I'm sorry, it's
I think you said Waverly.
Waverly
Yep.
is the first to answer this question.
First, I need to correct that the city is responsible under Title II, which is civil rights law. The city's lawyer, who's been with us for 12 years, told us that's not true. He told us we're not responsible because we've delegated it. That's not what the law says. The law says you can ask homeowners to clear it, but if they don't, the city is still responsible for making sure it is clear. So that is a civil rights violation. Montview, the neighborhood you asked about, has wonderful ideas about creating something called a Wunnerf, which are sort of flat. They're sidewalkless, but they're slow. And you have an opportunity to safely travel those. And this is really a walking sort of natural conservation land neighborhood. That makes a lot of great sense there. So I think what we should be doing is asking each neighborhood what they need. Again, we cannot be picking designs out of a book that consultants gave us from another city. We need to look at each neighborhood and let them tell us what they need. And in many cases, this will be a much more cost-effective solution than simply hiring out very expensive contracting. I also think that paying our DPW workers a living competitive wage is critical in ensuring the timely maintenance of our roads and sidewalks. We heard that we couldn't hire enough of them for all kinds of different reasons, but we heard from employees and we pressed the city that it was a wage issue. And finally, we are starting to see increases in wages. We saw about a $10 increase. We're still about $10 short. But this is what I'm talking about when I say we cannot just accept information that comes right from the top. Listen to what the public says and press back, and you'll be surprised at what you find. You will find solutions that were not on the table previously.
Okay, thank you. And to respond is...
Can you repeat the question again?
I'm going to do my best.
Yeah, okay.
City government is not responsible for plowing sidewalks, nor could it afford to plow all the sidewalks from Leeds to Florence to Northampton. Still, part of Northampton's current plan calls for a walkable city where residents drive less downtown. The Montview neighborhood near downtown has been advocating for new sidewalks. What can be done to help the neighborhood, help those wanting to walk in that neighborhood and all neighborhoods around the city in all seasons?
I think the problem of impassable sidewalks is a serious problem, and we need to address it. And I think that we need to. I feel like we need to have a plan of like when are these sidewalks going to be replaced. And in terms of clearing the sidewalks, I mean, I know that it's not consistent because people are supposed to clear the sidewalks in front of their houses, and I do think that enforcement needs to happen when they don't get cleared. I think that this is one of the things that comes up in almost every door I've knocked on. People have raised the issue of the sidewalks and the streets and the potholes, and I think that we need to have a solid conversation about what is the plan, when are we going to do it. And I think part of the problem is that deferred maintenance, we've let things fall apart, and I think Northampton's not alone. And so we need to kind of pull it together and, fix things. I could do it at my house too.
Thank you for that. Do you have follow-ups on that?
We do.
Okay.
Yes. I think the follow-up here is the question of passability and access for all citizens isn't just seasonal. It's not just wintertime. It's all the time. So when we think about what we're doing now for our city in all seasons, what would you do differently that is occurring now to help those sidewalks, and we'll stick to sidewalks, be more passable, more accessible to more people in all seasons?
Yes.
So this is actually an expensive undertaking, but it's a necessary undertaking, right, to upgrade all of our sidewalks. And In fact, part of the reason that it was deemed too expensive to plow them is because they are in such poor condition they would break the machinery that plows them. So this actually requires re-looking at our financial management, right? The fiscal stability plan worked at a time when we were in the red. It made our savings enormous. It underfunded our services tremendously. We are in a moment 11 years later, where we need to conduct operational audits to find out what we could be doing more efficiently, getting input from directors of DPWs from other cities. We also need to be re-looking at how we are estimating and forecasting revenues. There's more information available that we can get into if you come to the event at Bombyx on Friday at 6, or you can contact me anytime. But what I want you to understand is that this city is in an incredibly strong financial position in terms of its resources. It just simply needs to manage its money better.
Thank you for that. And
Yeah, I
your-
don't
your
agree with
answer.
that at all. I think that we have a problem we have to deal with, but we don't have oodles of money. So we have to figure out how we're going to deal with this problem of deferred maintenance of our sidewalks that has been decades in the making. And it's not going to sound exciting, but I think we need to have like a select committee with the city council. We need to have a community discussion to come up with a solution. But I think what it needs to happen is we need to have a plan of how much is it going to cost, and how quickly can we do it, and how many can we do per year, and it's just one of those really hard conversations we have to have, and it needs to happen. But I don't think it has to do with financial mismanagement. It has to do with old, crumbling streets.
All right, thank you for that. Thank you, panelists. So with that, we're going to close the question portion of this forum and transition into closing statements. You will each have 60 seconds for your closing remarks. And the first to offer, we're doing this in the reverse order of how we did opening statements. So the first to offer closing remarks will go to Lori Lozelle.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone on the Ward 3 Neighborhood Association for your hard work on this event, and thank you to everyone here for showing up tonight. We're at a point in the campaign where positions have been articulated and can be easily known with a quick internet search. My website, electloriloisel.com, has information about my background, professional experiences, and positions I've taken. All of these qualify me to serve as the Ward 3 City Councilor. But an election is about more than positions. It's also about approach. I think we need one another more than we ever have, and because of that, it's essential that we work together. I know how to work with others. Our city needs all of us to vote November 4th.
Thank you. And now it's your opportunity, Quaverly Rothenberg.
JFK said, "Ask not what your country can do for you," but I am asking you to ask what your city can do for you. This is a time where the working class is struggling. You may be comfortable. You may be comfortable. You may be happily retired in Northampton. Not all of your neighbors are. And you gave us so much of your money so that we could provide government services that are not optional, like the sidewalks, like special education. Anyone can say that they will be open and listen and be fair. I've seen my opponent at the Picture Main Street event at Forbes say, "I'm not convinced by anything I just heard from all these avid cyclists who cycle all over the country and the world," and said, they don't need to change Main Street. I've seen her not answer a questionnaire from the Special Education Parent Advisory Committee, despite everything that's going on and 20 people answering that questionnaire. And I've heard her say on the radio that she might send a newsletter once a month. Please look beyond what you see on our websites and look to what you see in our government and understand that half of the candidates are running to keep the status quo and half of us are running to give you a better government.
All right, well, thank you. With that, that ends our forum, and let's thank everyone for their participation.
Good job, Lori. 2 more weeks.
Now, if you'd like to have a conversation with either of the candidates, we're asking that you go outside because we're going to transition for the next forum. Okay. And then I hope you come back in for the next forum.
How y'all doing out there? All right. Well, we're about to start. I feel like we're about to start our second part of our evening. And this part is dealing with the mayoral candidates. And so, all right, I just wanted to make sure everybody was settled. And we're about to start, and I'm going to leave it back to this great woman that I'm sitting here so you can hear two great women, too. All right, guys, behave.
All right, well, welcome to part 2 of our evening. The format is exactly the same. I'm not going to go through all of the guidelines that we're following. I think everyone pretty much was here for our first one and understands how the flow is going to go. So I'm going to read a little introduction before I hand over the mic to each of our mayoral candidates for their own opening statements. Let me actually get organized to find where my bios start. I should have gotten organized before. Here we go. All right, so first up, I would like to introduce your mayor, Gina Louise Shara, who was elected mayor in 2021 after serving 4 terms on the Northampton City Council, the last as president of the council. And before taking over as mayor, Shara worked as the communications manager at Pathlight, an organization including Whole Children and Milestones. Next, I'd like to introduce to you Jillian Duclos, who is the executive director of Downtown Northampton Association before stepping down to run for mayor. Prior to her stint with the DNA, Duclos was the vice president of operations for Roberto's and Sylvester's restaurants. So now I'd like to offer each candidate the opportunity to share with us a 90-second opening remark, and we are going to start with our incumbent mayor, Gina Louise Shara.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everyone. As you heard, I'm Gina Louise Shara. I'm the mayor of Northampton. I want to thank the Ward 3 Neighborhood Association, Diane, Alex, and very special thanks to our District 8 Governor's Counselor, Tara Jacobs, for making the trip here and for all of the work that you do for us. What I love most about Northampton is we are a community that always steps up. We work together, we take care of each other, and we spark positive change. That is certainly what the Ward 3 Neighborhood Association does in this remarkable part of Northampton that has it all. It has farmland, industrial park, the river, part of downtown, and of course, Bridge Street School, where my children went to preschool and elementary school, and where I spent many hours in this cafetorium. It's also what Northampton Neighbors does for our older adults and really for all of us, which you know if you've ever experienced the pure joy of the Doozy-Doo Parade. For the 20 years I've lived here, I've always asked myself how I can best step up. 4 years ago, I ran for mayor because I was the most prepared for the job, having served 8 years on the city council and also as council president. I've now served 4 years as mayor, managing a $145 million government, overseeing 20 city departments, and working alongside hundreds of dedicated employees. And the challenges Northampton is facing, and cities everywhere are facing, have grown in that time, with a federal government that has truly gone off the rails. I'm fully prepared to shoulder these responsibilities, and I'm proud of the positive change that we've made together in these 4 years. More affordable housing units, reduced municipal energy use, more firefighters, more funding for roads and sidewalks, record investment in public schools, and a new division of community care that has helped nearly 1,700 people in distress with unarmed responses. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to hear an opening statement from Jillian Duclos.
Hey Northampton, my name's Jillian Duclos, and I am here to give you a voice, to build a vision for our community alongside you. When leading the DNA, I'd always be asked whether Northampton was past its prime, to which I'd always say, we are the trendsetters. All these surrounding communities are following in our footsteps, and we are working on developing the next trend. Is that a downtown redesign? I am not sure. The jury is still out on that one, and that is up to you. But what I do know that is up to me as the leader is that I am here to identify barriers to those that live and work here and to develop and execute policies and projects that not only remove them, but build a foundation for their success. This is my specialty. It is what I have done successfully in every role I've been in, whether it be working to elect leaders that represent the values of the people they serve, fighting to protect reproductive rights on the Hill in DC, building workforce development programs for folks coming out of prison, or developing and shifting operations as a restaurant owner in COVID to keep our staff safe and employed. I have lived and work experience to get us through what is ahead and to ensure we move forward in the way we want to see as a community. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm about to open up to our panelists to ask questions, but I just want to share that we've decided coming out of the last forum that in addition to offering our panelists the opportunity to offer a follow-up redirect question if they feel that they need more information, we are going to continue to offer what happened last round, which is if in the event you feel you want to make a rebuttal, we'll allow for a 60-second rebuttal on either side. And so it's a slight shift from our last forum, but I think that'll work. So our first question goes to Diane Porcello, who has a community question, and the first to answer in this round will be Mayor Gina Louise Shara.
The Northampton Housing Authority's Board of Commissioners has a 7-member board, more seats than many others in the state. At least 2 seats are now vacant. In the past, former city councilors and homeowners with limited understanding of life in public housing have been tapped to serve on the board. Since the mayor makes appointments to the board, what will be your plan to fully staff the board? And will you commit to selecting tenants in public housing as future NHA board members?
Thanks. So this has obviously been a really trying time for the Northampton Housing Authority with the investigation into the complaints about the director who is on leave. I want to thank the current acting director, the former acting director from Holyoke, and special thanks to EOHLC, that's the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, which oversees local housing authorities and has been quite responsive. Secretary Augustus himself actually saw that I was at a conference a couple weeks ago and pulled me aside and wanted to check in. So the very highest level of EOHLC is focused on this. Even though the city doesn't own the buildings or run the housing authority, the tenants are our residents and are hugely important members of our community. We hear those voices, and when people come to the mayor's office, which happens often from a housing authority property, with complaints, I advocate for them with the former director. I did the director who's on leave, I apologize. I did many times. So I'm very glad that the LTOs are coming together. My office had reached out many times to LTOs and tried to get a list of tenant residents who would be who'd want to be on the board. My priority is really stabilizing the board and filling the vacancies with people who can bring a clear focus on governance that prioritizes the best quality of life for the tenants in all 7 properties of the city. So we actually have to have 2 tenants on the board. I won't go into why we have a larger board than other places, but so I am committed and actually have been actively trying to find tenants to serve.
All right, thank you very much. Answering second, we're going to offer it to Jillian Duclos.
Yes, so, I've been working very closely with Salvo House, on cleanups and, working with residents there to put things into place so that cleanups were happening regularly. And in all the work that I've done, I've really understood that it's those who are, experiencing different environments, the people on the ground that really understand the needs that will best fit to make their lives better and to also solve the problems ahead of them. And I've worked with tenants to do this. There were issues with cigarette butts with Salvo House, which was driving the cleanups, and I worked with a tenant there, just to put small steps into place. Could we get folks to give buckets, and then have them filled at the DPW. So there was sand, and we helped operationalize this to let tenants know what those buckets we're there for, and it's really made a huge improvement. And I think with having this kind of representative on the board really will make a huge difference. You know, we can't always solve the big problems right away, but it's these small, tangible steps that we as leaders can find the right people on the ground to help put into place and help empower them to do things that make sense for their communities, because they are the ones that know, they live there every day. So yes, I will commit to making sure that we are appointing tenants from public housing to serve on the board. Thank you.
Are you satisfied with the answer? Yes? Okay, so we're going to move on to the next round. Asking the question will be Alexander McDougall, and the first to answer this one will be Jillian Duclos.
So one of the big events to be coming up in Northampton next year is the projected start of the Picture Main Street project, which is set to dramatically remake the city's downtown. The plans for the Picture Main Street project is to basically narrow both lanes on a section of Main Street downtown to one lane each side, add a bike lane, and expand the sidewalks to allow for some greater walkability. But a lot of businesses have expressed concerns. This is estimated to be about a 3-year project. A lot of businesses are still pretty recovering from COVID. They still are wary about another disruption coming to downtown. So this is sort of a two-part question. And do you feel that the project will ultimately help or hurt downtown businesses? And then also, how do you plan to support businesses during any construction of Picture Main Street?
Sure, yeah, this is a huge thing, and we talk about it often, you know, in all these forums and when I'm knocking on doors. To me, this isn't a good or bad or right or wrong. This is about the best step forward. I do think in the way that we have outlined plans right now, we don't have a strong and robust plan to support businesses through this project, and that does worry me. I did, when I was running the DNA, help to start the Pardon Our Progress Committee, and I sat on that committee for about a year, you know, really discussing with business owners who sat on that committee about the things that they might need, things that actually might alleviate some of these hurdles that businesses are facing, which are 35% losses each year over 3 years. Things like really instituting free parking downtown, or, you know, what we could do to alleviate water bills, like actual real tangible things that would be huge for businesses. What I worry on that is, even if we have a beautiful landscape after 3 years, folks are not coming downtown for that. They are coming for the people who exist there, the people who have invested their lives in their businesses. So I worry that we're not planning for that. And I think we really need to look at it. We need to really understand what we can do to make this project successful. And I haven't really seen any plans that outline that for the community in ways that they feel really sold and comfortable we're going to make it through in the way we should. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Mayor Shara. It's your chance.
So the Picture Main Street project is actually critical for our downtown businesses. How we buy things has dramatically changed in the last couple of decades. This project is primarily for safety. We're in the top 5% of accident clusters for the entire Commonwealth in our downtown, but it's also about accessibility. It will be providing much safer, more accessible spaces for people, including opening up some businesses that have never been accessible to someone in a wheelchair, and making that space available for the first time. So that, I think, will be important for businesses and very important for the community. And it's also really about vibrancy, right? We are creating more space for people. We are taking our outdoor dining and we are putting it into our sidewalk infrastructure. We are creating more free speech space for folks. We are making downtown a place that people want to come to. One of the reasons that downtowns are dying all across this country, again, is because retail has changed, and so you need to find different ways to draw people to downtowns. You know, one of the things we've worked on a lot in the last few years is doing a lot of programming during the summer. So we have bands on Brewster. There's Summer on Strong. We've been doing a lot of programming in Pulaski Park. We've been doing a lot of work on murals. So all things to kind of draw people downtown for different reasons. But it's really important to note that we actually, as was Ms. Duclos said, we have the Pardon Our Progress Committee that's been working for 2 years. Unfortunately, since you left, we've actually done a lot of work. And so I'm sorry that you missed it. But we have 4 subcommittees that are working and are doing remarkable work to support the businesses now and through the project.
All right, thank you for that. Do we have a follow-up from our panelists?
Thank you.
Is there any rebuttal from moving on to the next question?
I just have a
You would like to go?
question. And yes, I haven't been there for a year, but can you name specifically some of the, tangible things that the POP committee has put together to actually support businesses in tangible ways other than marketing or bringing
I'm
folks
sorry, I'm
downtown?
going to interrupt. If you wish to make a rebuttal, we'll give you an opportunity to
I'm
rebut, but not
sorry.
to turn into a debate this
Got it.
evening. So
Okay.
do you have a
I
rebuttal?
retract my question.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. I think
Yeah,
it's
I'm
just going to serve our format better from that standpoint. Okay, so for our next round, the round 3, the question goes to Diane Porcella, and the first to answer this one will be Mayor Shara.
The last Prop 2.5 override in Northampton was in 2020, and a scheduled 2024 override was rescinded. There is already talk that another override will be needed soon. What are the conditions under which you would support an override? And if you do not support an override going forward, please tell us where that additional money would come from.
So I've been very open about the fact that we will need another override. There was one that was scheduled that we were able to push off largely because we had a huge increase in interest income that came into the city. I won't get into the details, but we were our treasurer collector found a new vehicle for our investments that greatly increased our investment income. And so that's allowed us to push it off a little bit, but we are definitely going to need one soon. We've actually spent $5 million from the Fiscal Stability Stabilization Fund to support the Northampton Public Schools in the last 3 years. So that has drawn down that fund significantly, and again, we've had to bolster it in other ways. So what we need to do is continue to look at our incoming revenues. Obviously we're in a really treacherous moment in terms of the world and the country financially, and so we have to see what's going to happen. Interest rates have already dropped this fall, so that will impact what we get in investment income. But we need, every quarter we check this carefully, and so it's possible that we will need another override for the next fiscal year to be able to sustain our school and city services. So we've had huge increases in the Northampton Public Schools since I've been mayor, 32%. We also have done some great increases in public safety. So we've hired 8 new firefighters. So those are services that we need to maintain. And so if we need to have another override, then that's something that I would be bringing to the people.
Thank you for that. I turn it to Jillian.
Yeah, so until I get in there, I don't really know what I don't know. I really would like to look at all, each budget line by line to really see what we're investing in that we are not getting our return on investment, make sure that we're actually funding programs that make sense and not funding programs that do not make sense. What I do know is that I've been out on doors and folks are really worried about high taxes here. I've had folks that I've talked to who said that they have lived here for 30 years and they're about to retire and they believe they're going to have to sell their home because they don't think they'll be able to afford their homes in retirement. So I think we need to really be looking at being a little more visionary and really understanding different ways we can bring in tax revenue without raising taxes. I think thank you. And an economic development director to really look at filling these empty storefronts downtown to drive that revenue, to fill in these gaps, to alleviate our need to constantly be asking the taxpayers for an override. And if we find that we do need one, I think that what I would do is I would sell it. I'd be in every ward talking to folks about the realities of what we're facing and what we could do to help alleviate those issues for folks who may be retired and what we could do to find tax abatement programs to help keep them in their homes. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so move the other one away. Okay. Do we have any redirect over here on that question? Is there any follow-up coming from the candidates on this question?
I'm not sure how to do it without it being asking a question.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so let's move on to the next question. So the next round goes to Alexander McDougall to ask a question, and the first to answer here will be Jillian Duclos.
So in 2022, the City of Northampton purchased the former Baptist Church downtown to create with the goal of creating a new resilience hub for the city. This would be a multi-purpose community center that would provide for shelter in the cases of climate emergency, as well as house many other organizations meant to combat issues such as the unhoused in Northampton. The city purchased that for about $3 million. This was, I believe, back in 2022. And there has yet to be, it has yet to come into operation. So I guess the question to ask there is the Resilience Hub something you're in favor of? And if so, what do you see its future being?
Yes, so many folks have come to me and talked to me in depth about the Resiliency Hub and the frustration of how much money we paid above its appraised value. I think that looking at the Resiliency Hub and what we have ahead of us, we have to reprioritize. I think we need to get back to basics. I think when we talk about, we have money and budgets, and then we have time and we have resources. I think right now, city operations needs to be focused on, making sure that our DPW is operational and providing a strong foundation for the needs of our community, safe sidewalks and roads. I think we need to be putting our time and energy and resources into our public education system, which is, in a decline, and I think a lot of families are really relying on us to do that work and show up. I think when it comes to the Resiliency Hub, there are a lot of questions, one being that it's not operational, the other being that there is, a gas moratorium and there's no, heat connected to that building. I think it's something we really have to look at as a community and really understand if it's the way forward for us. I think we have other priorities we need to put in place first and rely on nonprofits that, do this work in our community and empower them to solve these issues that we're facing and how we can bring them together to do that work.
All right, Mayor, it's your opportunity.
Do you want to check this?
Yeah.
Okay. So there were years of studies and forums and groups that led to the concept and then a report on creating a resilience hub. This was something that many people over many years, including business owners, the vulnerable people that would be served by the hub, and lots of other nonprofits were involved in coming up with a report to talk about what its purpose would be. I just want to say, first of all, we paid below the appraised value, not above the appraised value. But there were over 30 people representing 18 organizations and service providers that were on the planning committee for this, and about 50 organizations that are part of the matrix of who would be involved with the hub. So this is a huge need that was identified and had a huge amount of stakeholders involved who said that having a day center and also a place where we could have a climate sort of refuge for folks was absolutely critical. I'm also going to note that the Northampton Policing Review Commission identified this as an absolutely critical thing that they strongly supported the development of. So there's a lot of folks who are behind this project, and I think we don't hear from them enough, and I'd like us to start hearing from them more. I'm still fully committed to this project, and we are working hard to get funding to finish the building. This is an incredibly hard time, as you all know, for human services in this country and for funding this kind of work. But we are working very hard to get funding, particularly grant funding, to finish the building.
Thank you. Is there a follow-up?
No, thank you.
All right, anything further over here? Okay, next question? Yep, okay. So the next question goes to Diane Porcella, and the first to answer this will be Mayor Shara.
School funding has become central and a central and dividing issue among Northampton voters. Some people contend that the city has enough money to fund schools at a higher rate than currently done. What's your plan to make sure Ward 3 residents understand how city and state money funds the schools and the Bridge Street School in particular?
Okay. So we have made record investments in the Northampton Public Schools in the last 4 years. And we've also done something like establish the Special Education Stabilization Fund to support critical student services. My goal has been, when I ran for mayor 4 years ago, I promised a 4% increase, which was sort of considered hard to believe that we could promise that. And what I've delivered is a 5.1, a 7.4, a 9.8, and then a 6.5% increase for the last 4 years for the Northampton Public Schools. So this is one of the most important issues to me. This is the thing that I care most deeply about, and I am committed to wringing out every possible dollar that is sustainable for our schools. What we can't do is repeat the mistakes that we've made in the past where we've used one-time money or we've spent down reserves and then have huge deficits. So I am committed to working to make sure that we can get every dollar. So that also means going to the state. We have one of the lowest percents of our school spending paid by the state in this region, second only to Longmeadow. So only 16% of our budget is covered by the state. Our state legislators have been working really hard on this, and we need to keep supporting them. This is absolutely critical that we address the Chapter 70 formula, that we address the charter sending formula as well. That is the thing that is making it really impossible, because it's the people of Northampton who are making up this increasing difference every year.
All right, thank you. Do we have a follow-up or a redirect?
Doesn't Jillian get to?
Oh my God, I'm sorry. Your turn.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
Everybody's working really hard. It's late. I feel you. So yeah, school funding has been a huge issue, and I think that, we have this fiscal stability plan, and I think it needs a review. I think we need to look at how it's working and whether or not how we're navigating our financial decisions is actually leading us to make sure that our city operations are working in the way that our community needs them. This is, their tax dollars. People have been coming for 2 years talking about their what their children are experiencing in schools, what caregivers are experiencing. Administrators and educators have been very vocal about this. And I think we need to really hear what they're saying and start coming up with a plan and some solutions to really navigate this. I think we need to really start looking at retention rates. There are ways that we are losing money from our school district that belongs here and should be invested in our students. So why are parents choosing charter schools and private schools? What can we do to enhance our curriculum, to shift the way we do things so that our schools actually meet the needs of administrators, educators, caregivers, and students? And I think we need to have that conversation as a community, and I think we really need to be clear about how we're going to move forward and how we're going to make sure we have the best public education system for the people who live here. Thank you.
Thank you. And
Sorry,
again,
I'm passionate about that one.
apologize for the mishap. Do we have a follow-up?
I do not.
Do we have a redirect? No? Okay. No? Okay. So with that, the next round goes to panelist Alexander McDougall, and the first to answer will be Jillian Duclos.
This is a question from the audience. When was the last time you rode the bus, and how does that shape your public transit goals?
Yes. I rode the bus when I was at Mount Holyoke, so we called it the PIVTA then. I've rode the bus with my son actually because he really loves that, and he just really can't wait until he can take the bus to school. But we live on Graves Avenue, so he doesn't know that he'll actually be walking here. I haven't told him yet. I rode the bus when I worked in Jersey City. And the interesting thing is when I lived in Jersey City, I paid less in rent for the same size apartment that I pay here. And I actually had robust transportation to get me across the city back and forth to work each day, which saved a lot for me as somebody who is building, equity in my life. I think that's something we really need to be looking at. I think that when we're looking at big projects and really trying to make our city more bikeable and walkable, that doesn't happen by building more bike lanes or taking away parking spaces. It's happening with some of the new developments that are being built too. There's one parking space instead of the usual dedicated 2 for a lot of units. But we really need to be investing in public transportation to ensure that can be easy for folks to get around town who don't have cars, and also to get rid of their cars so that they can bike and walk to work?
Mayor, it's your opportunity.
So that's a great question. As mayor, you actually sit on the Pioneer Valley Transit Authority. So we don't have a city transit authority, but we do have a regional transit authority. So I sit on that board and have great conversations with the other members in the region about how we can better serve Northampton. And we are always pushing for more routes. I know something that the council or some councilors are working on right now is better demarcation of our routes. We know that it's not always clear where you can pick up the bus, so we're trying to work on better signage for the routes. Since my job is within Northampton, I don't often ride the bus, but I do take Valley Bike Share sometimes, and that is something that I brought back a couple years ago. It had been on hiatus for about a year, and Valley Bike Share is a micro-mobility transit that is something that I really support, and have been pushing the state to fund more micro-mobility throughout the state, but certainly to help support Valley Bike Share. That ridership has been growing, and it's something that I know people really rely on for their transportation, in addition to for their recreation. So, I'm always pushing for more transportation within Northampton in whatever way we have. But PVTA. Also, there's public comment at PVTA, so I recommend that people come to those meetings. Those are public meetings, and you can always come and talk about what you'd like to see or more routes that you'd like to see.
Okay. Do we have any follow-up on that question? Do we have any redirect on this side? Okay, so the next, that was a no, right? Okay. All right, the next question goes to Diane Porcella, and the first to answer this will be Mayor Shara.
Massachusetts has the fourth highest rental costs in the nation, according to one study. And here in Northampton, we know many renters struggle to make monthly payments. The City Council and the Mayor recently supported a state legislative action to allow cities to implement rent control on their own. If Northampton were to adopt rent control, how would you explain to mom and pop property owners who depend on rental income that they cannot raise their rents beyond the rate of inflation when property owners in neighboring communities would be allowed that ability?
Sure. So, first of all, we desperately need more housing at every possible level. We have a housing crisis throughout Northampton, throughout the Commonwealth, throughout the country. So it's critical that we build more housing. I did support that resolution. So first of all, it's rent stabilization, not rent control.
Oh, thank you.
And it would be a local option. So communities could choose whether or not to take that option and put those parameters. In addition to rent stabilization, it also has some protections for evictions, which I think are really important. But I would explain to the landlords that it's really about putting some guardrails. We've seen massive increases in the last few years in terms of rent, and it's an impossible situation for someone to rent a place and move into a home, and then within a year or two get a 30% increase. That's no one can live in that way. And so it's about creating reasonable guardrails so that rent, not that you can't increase rent or try and make up any sort of additional costs through rent, but that you can't start gouging your tenants. That's just not a way that anybody can live, and no one should have to live that way. So I think it's reasonable to have some parameters that protect renters.
Thank you. And now Jillian Duclos' opportunity.
Yes, this is very complicated, and I'm a renter myself, and folks who are renting are really facing really high rents and really trying to make ends meet. But I've been talking to a lot of folks, and I do have friends that are the mom and pop landlords that you're talking about, and who have expressed concern to me around the high taxes here, and and they're folks that are really good to their tenants, and that's not always the case. So how do we find ways where we're not taking from one to give to another, pushing one down to let others rise? How do we actually help these mom and pop landlords, really understand what renters are facing and vice versa? I've actually been talking to folks who have been fighting, around this rent issue, talking about this, about how, really it's on this local level that we need to be working together, landlords and renters, to really solve these problems. And I think I'd really like to have more of a conversation around how we could strike that balance. But there are other things that I've been talking to folks about to help alleviate this crisis, which is looking at, Airbnb spaces, which tie up home, apartments that could be available for rent in this, crisis of housing. What other things are there for us that we can help put these, different solutions in place that actually lead us towards something that feels good for everybody who really works hard and wants to live and work in this community?
Thank you. Do we have a redirect?
We do.
Okay.
Questions from the audience are coming in fast and furious on this
So
question.
on the redirect, it's going to be answered in the same order. I need 1 minute for each.
So what we're hearing something of here is that property taxes could go up, but rents could come down. How can we make our property tax system more progressive and responsive?
So unfortunately, we don't get to control how we take in property tax. That's governed by the state. But the main issue is that our values have increased so much. So actually, our property tax rate has decreased, but the values in our homes has gone up so much, and so therefore your tax bill has gone up. So, I have worked very hard to make sure that any exemptions that are available for seniors and income-eligible seniors and veterans, that we are providing the maximum exemption for folks. And I've more than doubled this veteran and senior tax work-off program for the city. So we are trying to give everyone whatever levers they have to push to help them with their property tax issues. Actually, I was just knocking doors with the lieutenant governor over the weekend, and someone was talking to us about this, and I turned to her and I said, "You must hear this all the time," and she said, "Yes. I mean, this is the critical issue in the Commonwealth right now."
Yes, I do think that there are ways to really look at this. I think, I talk a lot about the role of municipal government and what, local government should be doing with our tax dollars. And we should be really investing in our city services, our public services, roads and sidewalks. But we find ourselves going beyond that scope and utilizing those dollars in other ways. If we want to maintain a tax rate that is affordable for folks, local government should be utilizing those dollars to build the strong foundation that, folks who live here need to live and work and thrive. And when we're looking at projects beyond that, looking at how to alleviate the effects of climate change or looking at things like the Resiliency Hub, we should be partnering with private and nonprofit industry to help navigate those projects and fund those projects. But I think if we get back to basics, we could really, invest in the ways that municipal government should be investing. And part of that should be maintaining a tax rate to which people can afford and be able to stay in their homes even when they're retired.
Thank you. Okay, so we've got time for one more round of questions. This one goes to our panelist, Alexander McDougall, and the first to answer this will be Jillian Duclos.
All right. I asked this question at the last forums, or just the previous session before this, so I'll just ask it again. When you're an elected public official, one of the things you have to do is communicate with constituents, provide some transparency in government. And so can you just describe a little bit about your method and philosophy with regards to how you stay in touch with constituents and how you provide that communication to them?
I mean, my method everywhere I've been is to always, meet people where they are and to talk to people as much as possible. to understand what's working and what's not working and what they need from their city government. This has actually been something that comes up often when I'm on doors, is this inaccessibility and this lack of communication from, the mayor's office. And I think, I've been really trying to hit that head on during my campaign. I've been driving what are called community conversations to bring folks together to talk about what's working, what's not working, and what they'd like to see from their leaders. It's very different from a lot of formats. There's no agenda. It's really just an open place for folks to come and talk about really what they're experiencing and what they believe we can do to help alleviate that for them. The first one I held at the end of July was really wonderful. And it's really interesting. I think one of the things we talked about was, needing a no right on red at a light on King Street because it's become very dangerous for pedestrians walking across the crosswalk. And I thought to myself, these are actually, small things that we can do, put solutions in place to really help alleviate something like this. And I'll be holding another one next Wednesday at Bombex at 6 p.m. But also I really need to understand from the community standpoint what they'd like to see from the mayor's office. I'd like to have, office hours. I'd like to have forums in each ward. I'd like to send out emails. There are all different modes of ways to communicate, but I really think I need people to share what that looks like to them.
All right, thank you. And now it's your opportunity to respond, Mayor.
So in my office, we answer questions from constituents every day, either by email or by phone. That's something that we love to do, so always feel free to contact my office directly. I also spend hours and hours preparing for council meetings and school committee meetings where I answer a lot of questions. Often those are from constituents. And I meet with community groups and organizations regularly. I actually used to meet with the Ward 3 Neighborhood Association very regularly until you all stopped. No shade, but I'm looking forward to doing that again with you all when you're ready. So I meet with other community groups as well and hear from different constituencies throughout the city about what their interests are. I also sit on many boards and committees where I get a lot of feedback and hear from folks. We made changes to our website recently to make it more accessible because we heard some feedback that it was hard to find some information. And my office started a newsletter last year, which we put out just about every 2 weeks. And in that, we have a question with the mayor. So we always encourage people to send in questions, and we give fairly detailed answers to those, as well as provide other information about what's going on in the community. We try and, we highlight ARPA projects. We talk about what the departments are doing. So we try and push out a lot of information in that newsletter about things that people we think will be interested in. If you have things you want to hear about in the newsletter, please reach out and let us know, and we'll be happy to incorporate those.
Do we have a follow-up on that? No, and nothing further on this end. All right, so with that, I want to thank you both so much for answering each round of questions. We're going to close out the questioning portion of the evening and turn to closing statements. Each of you will have 60 seconds for your closing remarks, and we're going to do it in reverse order of how we open. So the first to offer a closing remark will be Jillian Duclos.
First, I want to say thank you so much for holding this. I live here in Ward 3. I've, sat with the Ward 3 Neighborhood Association, and, it's groups like this that really make a difference in our community. So thank you for allowing us to be here and share our vision for Northampton. And, my vision for Northampton is a city where every voice is heard, every resident feels safe and supported, and every child has access to a quality public education. Northampton is at a critical juncture, and the decisions we make now will shape our community for years to come. So let's make those decisions together. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And now, Mayor Shara.
Thanks. Thanks again to the Ward 3 Neighborhood Association, Diane and Alex, Northampton Neighbors, the Gazette as well, and of course, Governor's Counselor Jacobs. We covered a lot of ground tonight, but there's so much more to being a mayor. And the job of making our city run is not a one-person job. It requires a community of dedicated public servants, elected representatives, and engaged residents like all of you. There are many things that we've worked on as a community in my first term, and there have been some really significant challenges. And I'm also extremely proud of what we've been able to accomplish together. So we live in a really awful national moment. The stakes are just so high. We need to come together and support each other. And my sense of responsibility and love for this city has never been stronger. So I am ready to continue leading the city in these really uncertain times and to stand with our strong state and federal leaders and all of you for this beautiful community. And it's been the greatest privilege of my life to serve you here in Ward 3 and in throughout Northampton, Florence, and Leeds. And I ask for your vote on November 4th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we can now all give that applause that we've been holding back. I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank our panelists for thoughtful questions and community members for offering those thoughtful questions and our candidates for participating. I hope you all have a plan for Election Day. So if you haven't already registered to vote, you still have time. October 25th is the deadline to register. October 30th is the deadline for your mail-in ballots. So make a plan. And once again, thank you to Ward 3 Neighborhood Association for hosting, and to Northampton Open Media for recording this. And you can find that on northamptonopenmedia.com. And you can follow Ward 3 on ward3.com and on their Facebook page. Thank you all.